welcome back again. Well, it's time for another interesting session in store for all of you, especially in the form of a panel discussion. And this is where we're going to get our speakers to come together and share with us as to what exactly would be the future strategies in marketing. What would it actually look like, especially when we take into account the current conditions and the way things, people, enterprises are operating. So let's gather all these insights from our speakers. In fact, we have with us first up Rami Zahran, Group Chief Marketing Officer, Saudi German Hospital Group, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. While I introduce Rami, let me also inform you all that he's someone who's comes with more than 14 years of experience in marketing and communications, and has also a proven track record in the industry and responsible for the company's marketing, communications, digital CRM, as well as events activities. With that, we also move on to our next speaker. We have with us none other than Sandeep Poduval, Chief Marketing Officer, Commercial Bank of Dubai. Sandeep, in fact, is another pioneering leader who comes with more than 25 years of marketing and communications experience and has also helped build successful brands across a diverse spectrum of industries, spanning India as well as Middle East. We're also joined by Abhay Kumar, Chief Marketing Officer, DAMAC Group. And Abhay, in fact, comes with a wealth of experience, and over the years, his focus, in fact, has been to help organizations create compelling consumer propositions by building differentiated brands, or for that matter, compelling digital vision. And he comes with more than 20 years of experience. That brings me also to our next speaker. We have with us Amy Peters, Senior Executive Vice President, Group Head of Marketing, Mashreq Bank. In fact, Amy also joins the panel to share her very, very interesting and dynamic inputs, because she's someone who comes with more than 20 years of experience in marketing, communications, and PR. And as the Group Head of Marketing and Corporate Communications, she's responsible for overseeing brand and marketing activities across the group, focusing on all the markets where the bank has its presence. And that leaves me, of course, with the one person who will be responsible in extracting all the perspectives from fellow panelists. We have with us Dunya Bonadar, Founder and Managing Director, Arts and the City FZE. And it's wonderful to have Dunya joining us, because while she's also the founder and managing director, she's also bringing with her a wealth of more than 10 years of experience in both the client side and the media agency. And this particular agency that we're talking about, the Arts and City FZE, is an agency that marries 360-degree marketing strategy and creativity to help businesses thrive and grow. So as you can see, with the list of our thought leaders joining us, they're bringing in dynamism, they're bringing in creativity, and they're bringing in some very, very interesting perspectives with regard to what really the future playbook with regard to marketing strategies looks like. If that's a question on your minds, let's get the answers, and let's also bring our speakers on the screen for you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kavya, for the great introduction. So I'm sure we're gonna talk wonders today with our guests. So let me just plan down the context of our panel today. With some good or bad memories about the pandemic. So as you know, we all had to adapt during this pandemic, and it has changed the landscape of how we work, and how leaders can no longer sometimes page out the traditional playbook, but adapt their brand and generate the maximum of return even during the crisis. So this panel will just review a few important things about marketing, including brand and values. So let's start with that. I'm going to ask Amy. Amy, how important is it, do you think, that someone knows the values of the brand they work for, specifically when you have to make decisions about business and marketing, and sometimes report back to the board about the decisions you make?
Thanks. I think it's critical. I mean, I think, the fundamental elements that underpin the brand have got to be relatable to the company. They've got to be relatable to your audience. And I think we talk a lot about purpose nowadays as an essential element of brand building. And to me, that's completely intertwined with, the values, the direction, and the real purpose of a company. And I think, as brand builders, as brand storytellers, as brand guardians, it's really a critical element of our role, to do that two-way, ensure the values of the company are understood internally and lived up to, but also communicated and lived up to when we're delivering to our customers.
Very good. I'm sure, Rami, you can agree with that. Rami works in a different industry, which is healthcare. So how about you bring your insights about how you can conduct values through your communication?
Absolutely. So again, I will echo Amy's words that it's more than values, it's about purpose, right? And a purpose is something that is built almost from the inception of the organization, the way when the organization was built. And that purpose is very different from, let's say, a vision statement, which can change over time. The purpose is there from the beginning. It survives the test of time. You can maybe tweak it a little bit, but it's still that core purpose that your organization has. For us, it was from the reason our organization started was from our founders. They created or they built the Saudi German Health Group. We've rebranded, so it's Saudi German Health. We're no longer just a hospitals group, we're a healthcare group. So it's Saudi German Health now. From inception, the purpose of why they built it was to relieve people's suffering. So that's why they built their first hospital, was how can we help people by relieving their suffering. That stayed as our brand purpose. We've recently modified it to add relieve people's suffering and improve their lives. Improve their lives also is because nowadays it's not just about coming to the hospital reactively and getting treated. It's also about proactively coming in to improve your life healthcare wise, through wellness and other proactive checks that you could do. So how does that purpose affect the way you do things? Business wise, you would probably start making decisions based on your purpose. Should I open this new hospital, or should I open this new new department? Is it going to improve people's lives? If the answer is yes, then it's likely to be something that you should continue studying from a feasibility perspective. From a brand perspective, again, all the content, anything that we develop, all the campaigns, need to always have that in mind whenever we're building something. Is it something that's really, and even we as in healthcare, we create health packages, medical packages that we tie into some sort of financial payment, right? So we need to always think of, is this going to improve people's lives? Is this going to help them? Is this going to relieve their suffering? And then reporting back to the board, it's something that you can always state that while these are the results, and maybe they weren't up to what you're looking for from a bottom line perspective, our brand purpose has still always been this way. And we believe for the following reasons, this has fulfilled the brand purpose. So that might, at the end of the day, make them reconsider if, let's say, results were not up to standard. Overall, what I'd also like to say is more recently, we've moved towards this idea of relieving people's suffering. We've kept that, but we've developed our brand ethos to be caring like family. So this is the idea that you need to be more emotional and empathetic in healthcare, which is something that we felt healthcare is a bit commercial or a bit technical. So the caring part is very important. So we've added that not as our brand purpose. Our brand purpose is relieve people's suffering and improve their lives. But how do you do that? By showing them the care as if they were a family member of your own. So caring like family is a very important aspect for us now, and staying true to it is extremely important.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm sure this is very interesting on how you can touch the hearts of your end customers by driving a real purpose and values. Thank you for sharing these insights, Rami. And on a spectrum of driving purpose, we have trend chasing. So you have trends sometimes that come up, and they can be good and they can be bad. So can a trend damage your brand? And how do you find the perfect balance between, keeping up with trends and staying true to your brand value? Maybe Sandeep, you want to answer that?
Sure. So no, I think trends is something that most brands are sort of getting onto it and wanting to create that next big viral campaign that goes around social media and then gets people talking. But we should not be confusing trends with brand purpose. Brand purpose stays true, and like Rami was mentioning, it comes in at the time of the inception of the brand. I mean, that's something that you need to stay true to for posterity. I mean, your trends will keep coming and going, but your brand purpose should remain sort of sacrosanct, and you need to stay true to it. So you again need to probably look at relevant trends that sort of integrate with your brand purpose. So you don't really want to do things, jump onto a trend just because it's right now. For example, the matrix is happening, right? I mean, are you going to choose red or are you going to choose blue? While that's all very fun, you need to see if it links back to your brand purpose, and if it is still fun without detracting from your brand purpose, well, that makes sense. But if it is actually at complete opposite ends to what your brand purpose is, then you should stay away from those trends. So from that perspective, it could actually be damaging as well. So you need to be careful with trends. While it's good to get people talking about it, you need to also somehow link back to what your brand stands for, and also somewhere down the line about in terms of saying what does it do to your, not just your brand but also your business. I mean, so yes, there is a impact from a brand image perspective, but is it going to add any material impact to your business? And if it is not, then are you just doing it to get eyeballs and impressions, or are you doing it? So that again is sometimes a hard question. I mean, as social media managers, all of us do sometimes get caught up in the business of trying to just get followers. But I mean, is that really adding anything to the bottom line? Are they really engaged? Is again a hard question that we sometimes need to answer.
Very true words indeed. So speaking of valuable content, how do you define content, and what impact do you aim to have on your audience? Abhay, tell us more.
Yeah, so content for us is of various types, right? So we sell real estate while we are a Dubai-based company, and a lot of our product footprint is UAE focused, but a lot of our consumer acquisition happens across the globe. So close to 60% of our product sales happen to consumers who are not within the geographic boundaries of the UAE. And therefore, how do we appeal to those consumers? What is important for them to understand about the product that we are selling and the environment in which we are selling? I think all of that goes towards deciding what kind of content we are creating to allow our consumers to learn more, satiate their need for information, which allows them to make educated choice, hopefully in our favor. And all of that comes together to create both salience and advantage for the brand compared to competition. Content, of course, takes various colors as well as you talk about segments of consumers, right from the various formats that we leverage to appeal to the various needs of consumer content consumption, starting from simple things like whether a quick 2-minute read is what the consumer is looking at versus a video format and so on. Languages, when somebody is looking at buying a property, they are looking at understanding information related to finance. They are looking at understanding information related to economy and so on. Well, I can go on talking about content because that's something that we have to create a lot of depth and color and bring color into. But yeah, I mean, it depends on how broad the consumer segment is and how relevant is creation of content and necessary for us to achieve depth in it.
Thank you so much. Yes, you've just mentioned the importance of informing and communicating and educating your end customer. How was it for you, all of you, during the pandemic? Has this been even more important during the pandemic to inform your customers and make them, make them do choices that make sense, And this also brings up another questions, which is KPIs, and how do you define KPIs in your daily job, in your specific industry? And is there a model you would suggest to follow for our listeners today?
Yeah, sorry, do you want me to go or?
Sure, we're gonna do a round. So yeah.
Sure. So see, we before the pandemic, one would not imagine that consumers will put down millions of dirhams to buy a product without even wanting to take a look at the physical unit that they're buying. And if you told me 1.5 years ago that consumers are going to buy real estate online, I would not have believed that. But since pandemic, and this might come as a surprise to my colleagues on the panel as well, close to 10% of our sales is all end-to-end online. And that's largely happened because we've successfully identified a clean consumer journey where we bring the consumer in through advertisements and then allow the consumer in a virtual reality environment to experience the property that they're looking at buying, and then facilitate transaction going down to a card swipe or a bank transfer to happen. So it's been a lot of effort on creating content which allows the consumer to get a real feel of what they are looking at purchasing, facilitating processes which are as smooth as possible, because all processes, and I'm sure all of us will agree, a lot of processes have been created for the offline world. And as digital becomes important in our respective categories and industries, we try to migrate those processes for the digital world. The advantage that we've had in real estate is that we created these processes because of the pandemic with our backs against the walls, purely for the digital world. So a lot of that has come together, and all of this probably would have happened over the next 5 or 7 years. And it has happened in the past 6-7 months.
Yeah, I'm sure this has pushed you to think out of the box. And Rami, what about you? How was it in healthcare?
So should I answer the question about the pandemic or KPIs? Which one?
Well, they're kind of interlinked, so I don't know how you want to approach
Okay, I can give you a little bit of how things have changed over the pandemic. So in general, as Abhay was saying, basically the pandemic has changed the way we think. You know, that people, you would have never expected people to buy property online without even seeing or at least going into a physical place where they could have something to look at. It's definitely changes. And I think what's been amazing about the pandemic, for all the horrible things it's been, but it's for some of the good things it's been, is that we've just, you know, we were doing things pre-pandemic because that's the way we just traditionally did them, and never thought about them otherwise. You know, the pandemic came and made us realize we could do virtual conferences instead of physical conferences. We can work from home. There's no problem. People will still be productive. We can order a home from home. We could order why do I need to so often go to a petrol station? I could just have Kafu come to my house and fill up my petrol. You know, there's a lot of things that we realize, why was I doing it the previous way when I could do it this new way now that the pandemic forced on me, if you will. And it was the same with healthcare. There was a lot of instances where people had to have their healthcare in a remote form because they couldn't, there were mobility restrictions. And so there was a huge demand for telehealth, telemedicine. Now that has died down since, I could say, I believe. People, because of the sort of the intricacies of healthcare, you still need to physically see a patient, do certain tests. But for it opened up at least the possibility that you could be monitored remotely if you're a chronic patient, without having to physically come in on a regular basis, because there's now remote monitoring devices. They can link them to an app, a tool, and have that sort of back and forth with your physician digitally and remotely. So that's definitely something that's going to be talked about more and more developed. And telehealth is not just about a remote consultation. There's so much more to telehealth. We're just scratching the surface, like remote monitoring. One day, even possibly doing remote surgeries. There's so many different possibilities. So that's how the pandemic has changed. From a KPIs perspective, I'm very big on KPIs. It's the first thing that I do when I join any group. It's set a bunch of KPIs for myself, for my team, and assess ourselves based on this. And there's real-time KPIs, so KPIs that you want to keep tracking of, particularly if your IT system is robust enough that you could see what's happening from a day-to-day customer perspective. So I have great tools to be able to see our flow of patients on a day-to-day basis to see where there's been a drop. And then there's your monthly KPIs of certain targets that you set, whether it's engagement rates from a digital perspective, or leads generated, or share of voice from a comms perspective. Or for me, we do every 6 months, we do something called the brand equity study to see where we stand in terms of our brand equity versus others. Brand equity is a formula. I have a fantastic sort of example of how we've used it. It's a formula, and if you know the formula and if we work towards this sort of principles of what affects it, and you activate some of those tactics, you'll start seeing your brand equity increase. In one of the cities we're in, because we do it by city, we went from being number 4 in terms of brand equity to number 1 over a span of a year and a half from using that formula and the tactics against it. So many different KPIs. It's important to set them at the beginning of the year, keep them dynamic, and also identify the ones that you can keep a track of on a daily basis, monthly basis, 6-month basis, or yearly basis.
Very interesting learning. Thank you so much. I want to switch the conversation to something a bit more specific, and also in the context of pandemic, which is, the customer experience online. I'm sure we had to double down on this because a lot of things were happening online and not offline anymore. You just mentioned healthcare. You're starting to scratch the surface. Of not going to the doctor physically. Same for real estate. What about banking? How was the user experience improved or enhanced or restudied?
Which one of us would you like to jump in?
I know,
there?
There are 2 banks here.
Look, it's critical for us. I know I said the first thing was critical. Customer experience is absolutely central, and especially during a pandemic. If you think about, essentially what are we talking about with customer experience? We're talking about, ensuring from our end that the processes and engagements at every single touch point that a customer has with any type of banking that they want to do. So whether it's paying, whether it's transferring, whether it's withdrawing, is simple and seamless. It's intuitive, it makes sense, and it happens when you expect it to. That is customer experience. It's really, really simple. And in a pandemic where you have so much change and fear and unknown, I think it's even more important. And I think for us, we were already very digital. So we accelerated change rather than having to necessarily sort of initiate change, which, gave us some advantages. But I think it's not about that. It's actually about, ensuring that your call center teams are thinking about, they're thinking empathetically. They're understanding that when something is not going through, they can't refer necessarily to, technical terms. Your transaction did this SWIFT nonsense, we've got to talk to people about people because it's their hard-earned money that we're dealing with. And that to me is what, the customer experience was already central. It was already important, but I think the pandemic made it even more so.
Yes, thank you for even mentioning the language and the importance of making things transparent for your end customer. Before we jump into the next topic, which is strengthening your community, Sandeep, do you want to add anything about about CX mindset and having a good customer experience online?
No, I think, I think the panelists did touch upon all of the relevant aspects. I mean, I think empathy and keeping the customer at the heart of everything that you do is the start of a better customer experience. And I mean, obviously, again, like everybody else mentioned, thanks to the pandemic, the entire digitization process has accelerated even 10 times over. So making sure that you are able to give access and provide products and services conveniently to customers is now the order of the day. And unlike what Rami was saying, with banking, we probably see that once a customer gets onto the digital platform, we very rarely would probably see him going back into the brick and mortar sort of process. So for example, on an acquisition front, I mean, our accounts are like 100% now digital. You can open an account, and we in fact we only allow you to open it digitally using a mobile app. We're moving, we're doing that across with cards. Now with cards, you can actually get a virtual credit card issued to you literally in minutes with just your Emirates ID in literally a few minutes. I mean, and sitting from the comfort of your home, no need for complicated bank statements and forms to be signed in triplicate and whatever else. Similarly with digital loans, I mean, you can actually get loans again issued to you with money in your account in minutes. Yeah. And we definitely see that this is again all part of the customer experience, all part of digitization. And once a customer does this and experiences this, he's not going to be wanting to go back into the branch for sure. But having said that, I mean, we don't expect, especially in the UAE, a scenario where it's going to be a pure digital play. We will still need branches. Therefore, there is going to be a hybrid sort of an approach. So at points in time, and for some products, I mean, whether it's real estate or whether it's something slightly more complicated personal loan, you may want that personal touch and you may want to walk into a branch. So we always see this as being, we're giving you the access, we're giving you availability through mobile and through online to get all your jobs done. But if you still want to walk into a branch, our doors will be open for you.
Yes. So in your specific industry, it's about accelerating what was already online, yet not disregarding completely the offline, because it's still important to have contact with your end user. Thank you for sharing your insights. And let's keep moving about the community aspect of marketing. So how is it for you to authentically speak to your community, communicate your brand value, and drive engagement eventually, and even conversion on your specific social media platforms, media channels, whatever you're using? Let's start with Rami.
So look, it's a hard one, because if I tell you, we figured out the right formula or whatever, I'd be lying. We're all trying to figure it out. Social media is not, it keeps evolving. So, and it's not been around for that long that there's any real expert out there, and it evolves so often that even the experts from last year will probably be, not know everything from this year. But one thing we try and do as much as possible with social media is try and be authentic. It's important. It's important to be empathetic, as Amy said. Empathy goes a long way, I think, with people, particularly post-pandemic. But everybody's doing a lot of very similar things on social media. It's a platform that's easy, that's open to everyone. And almost everyone is doing very similar things, and we'll be guilty of it, because you can't always be unique. You can't always break through the clutter. I mean, social media is literally a campaign per day, if not two, so if not more. And we have different branches of our hospitals, and each one has to run separate campaigns. So we're talking about multiple campaigns per day. How can you break the clutter every single campaign? It's not possible. So sometimes you will look quite standardized, and you will look like somebody else, and you won't be as empathetic. But what I really truly believe in is looking at other industries helps a lot, because you can learn a lot from other industries. So if you box yourself within your own industry, and I actually always find it quite funny when people only hire from their own industry. It's actually, they're doing themselves a big disservice, because there's always a fresh perspective and a fresh outlook when you get somebody from from outside who can bring value, particularly in marketing. We're not talking about bringing a banker to as a doctor. That's we're talking about marketing to marketing.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, I hear you.
When you learn from other industries, it opens a whole world of possibilities. That okay, this is how I can break the clutter. This is how I can be unique. This is how I can be honest, because I've learned something from the hospitality industry, for example, which is similar to the hospital industry, that I could apply, which is the softer side of healthcare that we could apply, which is the hospitality part. So I'm now picking up from hospitality, and we're trying to apply that. I think this
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, I think people who only stick to their FMCG. I'm sorry, but I don't think anybody is from FMCG. They've looked like the same product and marketing for the last 20 years. It's exactly the same formula. It's exactly the same look and feel. It's exactly the same message. FMCG, for example, is one that I have not seen any change in the longest time. Maybe they'll change it up by just bringing in an FM influencer to promote it, but that's about it. So I feel that's how you could be unique, authentic, honest, by trying things differently, by looking at other industries to see how they've done it.
Yeah, so let's talk about influencers in that case. Have they been a help in differentiating your company? Are they beneficial, and especially in the lower funnel activities, which is conversion and purchase? Have you ever used them? And do you think they're valuable? Sandeep.
Okay, sure. Let me go for that. And I mean, influencers are useful and relevant, but again, I mean, they need to be. I mean, again, most importantly, they need to be credible and relevant to the product that you're talking about. And again, let me give you a classic example that's just gone, that's made the news recently. I don't know whether you've heard of Kim Kardashian recently promoting a cryptocurrency. She's been promoting something called an Ethereum Max, and that's now actually got into the eyes of the regulators, because she's reached out to 250 million of her Twitter followers on a product that is not regulated, and that she has no clue about, the regulators have no clue about. And that is just it's almost like a scam product, because it's not really Ethereum, it's Ethereum Max. It's a new sort of product out there, which is now suddenly everybody's talking about it and going out onto it. So the pitfalls of influencer marketing cannot be, better illustrated than with this example. Having said that, I mean, yes, obviously there are merits of using good influencers and actually using it. We've dabbled with a few for some of our products, and again, targeting specific sort of segments. So for example, when we wanted to look at the Filipino segment for a couple of products that we had, we used influencers, so micro influencers within that category, and they gave us limited success. I mean, to be honest, I don't think they really set the charts on fire. But you need to be very careful. I mean, a beauty blogger talking about a fashion brand, about a financial product, is something that is going to be, seen with a huge amount of skepticism.
Well, to be fair, who knows what is crypto right now? Like we are all clueless. But yeah, definitely it probably brought attention to it. So Rami, you shared that hiring from different industries, it brings so much value to a CMO to think out of the box and bring out insights. How is it for you, Abhay? How do you hire? How do you think about the next CMO? What would be the ideal candidate? Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
The next CMO, I think I don't know about the next, but the current CMO for sure needs to sit somewhere between understanding traditional marketing, the basics of marketing. How do you segment your consumer base? How do you target? How do you position? How do you develop strong proposition? I think these fundamentals of marketing will not change. It still is all about the consumer. The added complexities in the CMO's job today referred to well, whether you think of it as complexity or think of it as opportunity, I think it's largely about recognizing that consumers have always been in their own heads that one single person, right? So I believe I am like myself and like nobody else. In the past, as a marketer, you had no option but to look at consumers as broad segments. That possibility of narrowing those segments down to niches and down to a segment of one, classically called, is a real possibility today. For a CMO to actually do justice to that thought and justice to the consumer's desire to be seen as the segment of one, the capability requirement is to understand data, identify possibilities of gathering data as much as possible, be insanely focused on driving data as a practice within the teams that the CMOs lead, and work very closely with the CTO's team or the CDO's team. A lot of us might be wearing the hats of the CDO and CMO in our organizations. So if that's true, then work very closely with the CTO to put in place the right technologies to be able to capture that data and analyze that data in as real time as possible. But like I said, at the core of it all continues to remain the consumer. The more focused we are as marketers on the consumer, the more we'll identify opportunities to leverage technology, leverage advertising, leverage proposition building to be able to address the consumer's need. And I think this will continue. I think there will be new techniques tomorrow. There'll be new technologies tomorrow. There'll be new possibilities tomorrow. But I think at the core of it will still remain your passion for the consumer.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a true fact. We always kind of undermine the importance of data, and I'm sure we all had to look at them a bit more deeply during the pandemic to make decisions. I mean, what about you? What do you think about the next CMO?
I couldn't agree more. At Mashreq, we are building a marketing ops function to really start to operationalize and streamline some of those data feeds coming in and ensure that we are on the front foot, I think, in terms of proactively managing all of that information that flows through us and connecting it with the parts of the organization where it can be most valuable. But, to do that, you have to, superpower your data understanding speed, which has been a challenge. But, we continue to grow and learn. And so, yeah, but I think it's absolutely the data understanding as that specific element of the broader sort of technology piece is a really critical element for the future CMO.
Yes, data is the future, like they say, and somehow it helps to connect dots. When you make decisions and you have the data. So the question is, why do you gather data in the first place? To look at them later. It's always, why you gather the data. What about live streaming? That's a different one. So we've touched upon, we haven't talked about this yet. What about live streaming? Have you ever used it as a tool to, sell, convert any of your clients in your specific industry? No.
Not really. So we've done LinkedIn live events. We've done some streaming for some events when we've done, like, for example, we've sponsored a half marathon, so the CBD half marathon and stuff like that, or when we've done something for the National Day celebrations. But in general, from a product launch perspective, to be honest, not really. I mean, banking is not so much out there like an FMCG product where we can create a little bit more of dance and fanfare. It's slightly more serious. So I mean, yeah, to be honest, not too many. I mean, I'm not too sure of the rest.
Not yet.
I could take that one, Dunya, because we've done live streaming. So one of the things that we realize is that people want to connect, because a lot of times in healthcare, there's so many questions that people have regarding their health. but they don't have a direct access to a doctor, right? So a lot of people go on forums, they'll go on to different ways to try and get information, or Google, which I always tell everybody, do not Google anything. Just do anything health related. Do not ever Google anything health related. So what we did instead is we create these live sessions where you can access a doctor. We have a presenter who we've set up. So we do these live streams, and they've been viewed by thousands and thousands of people each session. We'll have specific topics of high interest: pregnancy, weight loss, smoking cessation. There's a lot of interesting topics. People, they just want to know more, and they want to they want to ask. They have specific questions, or so we do these live sessions with doctors. So we do live streams with them. The advantage of live streaming is it's live, and you can have people interact with you directly. The disadvantage is it's not as polished and as refined as sort of content that you've had time to look at, review, and go back several different times, several different iterations to be able to put in a place where you feel this is looking as polished as it can be. But it has its advantages as well.
So it probably sits on the top of the funnel, which is awareness, would you say?
Absolutely. It's more awareness based. From a conversion perspective, live streaming, unless it's a live streaming of a product that you could order on the spot, kind of like bringing back the days of TV. What were they called?
The teleshopping channel.
Teleshopping. Thank you. Teleshopping. Unless I don't know, maybe that happens with other products where they do teleshopping through live streaming. It is very possible.
I think
it's about the content at the end of the day. So if you're talking about the conversion, if you're talking about the servicing of the customer, so the doctor example, the private banker who wants to Zoom with their client, those are, direct relationships. In terms of, marketing acquisition, I'm not sure that people necessarily want to be sold to in live stream. Do they want that content awareness in webinars, in live stream, and that kind of thought leadership that you were talking about, Rami? Absolutely, that's interesting. But I think it's more of a content type and targeting question.
Yeah, I think it's top mid funnel, because you're also getting some interaction and engagement, and so you're developing their interest, right? So they are now Dr. X, who spoke about a specific topic that I'm now aware of, is also I'm now interested in what they spoke about. Maybe I kind of want to go get myself checked for this, or speak to the doctor directly. And now I built a connection also with this doctor, because that's the doctor that I live streamed and watched and had a chance to ask a question. I want to continue that relationship because I've already pre-built it. So it's a top of funnel awareness, but also mid funnel interest building activity.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. Live streaming is definitely a tool that we can use more, as you mentioned. We have to wrap up the session already. It's been very insightful. Thank you so much to all of you and I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. Thank you, Rami. Thank you, Abhay. And thank you, Amy and Sandeep. Back to you, Kavya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. I believe that turned out to be not just a lucid discussion, but a very insightful one, and particularly to do with all the other aspects around how the companies, or for that matter, conversations pivoted. So it was very interesting to gather all of your insights. Thank you once again for that very beautiful session. And thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the program. Thank you again. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope all of you are geared up as we're about to get on board another thought leader in store for all of you. And the next topic is bound to ensure that we will be spreading a lot of fragrance, because they are spreading fragrance in the Middle East and setting a vision for India as well. So see you all exactly in just a couple of seconds. We'll get the next session started.
Thank you.